As the Fukushima nuclear reactor plant develops, and we're getting news in sporadically at the moment on that, international reaction to the event has differed. We've seen Angela Merkel in Germany suspend 7 of their older reactors, of which we believe from an inside source that at least 4 of these won't come back online, which will leave them a shortfall in energy production. We've had the Italian government coming out today to say that they're imposing a 12-month moratorium on nuclear new build. The UK government has taken a position of we will look at all the licensees and gather more information, and the USA government have taken a similar stance. Now, we caught up with Garth Hattingh from South Africa, and this is what he had to say. Welcome, Garth.
Thank you, Neil. Nice to be there.
Now, Garth, you and I have been having a brief conversation via email over a concept that you put into NLTV with regards to creating an international nuclear emergency reaction team. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Certainly, Neil. I'll try to tell you what it's about. You know, what the Fukushima drama unfolded, one has to look at it and say perhaps things could have been done a bit better. One certainly not criticize was going on in that control room. It must have been horrifying trying to deal with an earthquake, a tsunami, a blackout, and it must have been terribly difficult. But perhaps one has to realize that the folk who were controlling it, they might not have the best of training to deal with the disaster. And in fact, very few people in the world would have. And I think this is the sort of what I was trying to think about and trying to put into that email. To me, it's time that the nuclear industry kind of woke up to the responsibility and said, look, disasters are going to happen, unfortunately. Secondly, we are perhaps not as well prepared as an industry as we should be to cope with them and to mitigate the results of these disasters. And, following on from there, what do you unfortunately can't train every single operator in every single reactor in the world. And the logical thing is to look at what police departments have done. They've developed SWAT teams, specialized teams that go in where crisis and handle it. And I think this is where I'm coming from. Let's try and look at a nuclear SWAT team, called it an International Nuclear Emergency Reaction Team, which for those who are chemists works with, which is something that is perhaps very in terms of the nuclear industry. And I think it's a chance to look at a way of dealing with crises with external intervention to help the folk in the plants, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm quite interested in what your plans are in South Africa as to whether public opinion will come down for or against nuclear once the Japanese situation has been resolved. Have you got any thoughts on that, Garth?
Well, perhaps one of the things that might count a bit against it is we were involved in the PMBR, the sort of pebble bed reactors, yes. And spent 11.5 billion of the South African taxpayers on them, and they just ran to a dead end. And so a little bit of a resistance against nuclear. It's a totally different technology, but nonetheless, especially when people haven't got a level of education, as much of the country doesn't have, it's suddenly seen as if this was stopped, why should we go further in nuclear?
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining me today, Garth.
Right, Neil, it's been great, and I wish everybody good luck in Fukushima.
Well, that was Garth Hattingh from Durban, South Africa, and we hope to bring you more news from around the world on what the mood is or what the flavour is for nuclear in different countries.